How are you doing?
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Very nice to meet you.
And you. Very pleased to meet you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for agreeing to spend some time with SunandSutra today to discuss the Thrive movie and the movement. This is Tony that I spoke to you about, of the Emporium.
And I've been passing your great video around, Tony, ever since Ammon told me, and we put it up as a link on our site and everything. I really appreciate that very important work.
Thank you very much, and we actually saw the link on the site earlier, so we're very happy to see how quickly you put it up there and passing it around, so thank you for spreading the information.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's an important one.
Good. Do you know much about what's going on there with hemp in America at the moment, or?
You know, not as much as I want to. I'm a member of my local Grange. One of the things that we have here in the States is local Granges in most communities, and in Santa Cruz County where I live, it's agriculture is the main source of revenue. And, you know, it's just a horrible mess filled with pesticides and water issues, and so I'm a member of there's kind of a Grange revitalization movement going on. So I joined the Grange, and I went down, and our first meeting was actually about industrial hemp. And so I sent the link to them and said, you know, my idea is that we could be learning from each other to find out in any country where it's legal to get the data in order to help inform the farmers here and get them on board to see, you know, the direct impact on their bottom line. So that's our, you know, we have the main focus for Thrive movement these days is the Solutions Hub that we have at thrivemovement.com, where the whole idea is to link people in order to share best practices and to do exactly what I'm talking about, to take the good work that you're doing and the experiments that you can do now with the farmers directly and get that information here, because as soon as the information's there, I think people will make the natural decision that it's obviously the way to go, and it's just another one of the great possibilities that you know, we've been lied to about.
Exactly, and what's important as well for us is what happens in America affects a lot of the developing world, as you know. So a lot of us, our politicians, take guidance from the American law. So even us getting allowed to do our trials now, it's kind of related to having to break away, and there's a risk for our politicians because of all the World Bank loans and the IMF and everyone saying, look, cannabis is a drug, whether you're growing houses or feeding people or all of that, it's still a drug in their eyes. So the work that's been done in the States is as important as obviously what we're doing here, but we've also got Canada, which is right above you, which is, you know, they're thriving with their hemp industry, so they can really show us the way as well, and the whole of the EU. But it's the whole debt. I don't know if you've read Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Yes, sure.
Yes, you know, that's still alive and well, with the whole of Africa owing money to America, and therefore getting told, look, you can't do this because you know, otherwise we will not give you your preferential interest rates, or you know, we won't loan you more money. So it's really important that shift happens on your side, which is why the work you're doing on that side is as wonderful.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm really interested in taking this one on because it's such a multifaceted solution, and it really is the whole point in having the hub. Like, my intention with thrivemovement.com is to just create this a hub for network. It's like a network of networks, so that we can really do this and benefit from each other. It's the same with the GMO-free zones. I mean, Italy has made huge progress in that we could be learning from them. You know, now there are places in California, Marin County near us just was succeeded in going GMO-free. So it's happening, but to share, like, what's the data, you know, so that you can help really convince people, and what were the lawsuits, or were there any freedom of information requests needed, or what were the templates to help bring your community together? What flyers did you use? You know, so anything to help save people time and reinventing the wheel, because, you know, the agenda operates with quite effective organizational strategies, and we need to be organized ourselves. So that's our intention, really kind of the intention for Thrive all along was a three-part vision that Foster and I had. The movie was kind of like, our idea would be the minimum sufficient understanding that people needed in order to really make effective solutions. Because there's so many people working, you know, so well intended for the betterment of people and the planet, but their efforts aren't actually very leveraged or strategic when you know the nature of the problem. So the idea of Thrive would be that it would just kind of cohere and connect the dots to make that minimum sufficient capsule of understanding. We always said it's like a trailer for the website, because really the website's where you then go to do the work of finding out what's your place in this, you know. And then the third was this solutions hub to create the network of networks and to provide the tool for people to do their own self-creating movements. You know, our job isn't to become an expert in any one of these, but it's really to facilitate people doing the important work with GMO-free industrial hemp, new economic systems. And I think given that, you know, Confessions of an Economic Hitman tells the true story that's still very much alive and well today, and you can watch it all over the world unfolding, my belief is that there is an equal rising of energy on all sides along the spectrum, and you can really feel it. People are waking up, and that it's sort of like what systems are going to be available to replace the one as it falls, because it's going to fall. It's an unsustainable system. You can feel the desperation in it already. And so I believe that having these experiments of industrial hemp going on all over the place then can kind of kick in and take over. Same with alternative health treatments and things like that, alternative currencies, all of it. So I'm very encouraged to see how many people there are working on these things. And your video was fabulous because, in fact, one of the gals on our team wasn't very educated, and I kept saying, hey, I want to put more up about industrial hemp. And she's like, so what's the thing with industrial hemp? And I said, watch this video. So I gave her your video, and she wrote back, she said, oh my God, just another thing I didn't know anything about. She said, I want to post this all over the place. So, oh, I forgot to, well, I need to unplug my phone because I forgot about.
Well, I guess that's your first question.
Yeah.
Okay, so here I am to talk about anything you want.
Okay, we want you to know, what has the response been to the movie?
The response to the movie has been fabulous. Let's see, it's been out for 7 months, and over 4 million people have seen it. And it's been translated into 18 languages. And, you know, for the most part, it's actually interesting that we mentioned the whole role of the IMF and the World Bank and the global currencies. And because it sort of depends on where a country is in the process as to how people are relating. I mean, in Greece and Portugal and even in Germany, I think because of what they've been through, where people have seen certain things before, they are on it. Even Japan right now. I mean, we're huge in Japan because people recognize that, and also in countries where the government has already acknowledged UFO sightings or contact,
Yes.
so that it's a non-issue. Those parts, in those countries, it's been fabulous to watch us like pick up and go with it, where instead of talking about, you know, I don't know if I like the music, you know, it's like, let's not get hung up here, you know. I mean, if the facts in the movie are true, we need to be having a conversation about what's going on. And no one's been able, there hasn't been anybody who has been able to show that any facts in the movie are not accurate, which I'm very proud. You know, we took a long time to corroborate this information and to be careful about what we put out, and it's turned out to be verified. So the response has been great. Of course, there's a mixed bunch of energy coming in. You know, it's been, I feel very proud and grateful, and I also feel like personally, you know, it's interesting to be a controversial figure. it's someone was saying, well, what's it like to be controversial? And it's like, well, it's totally uncomfortable, of course. You know, it's just that it's totally worth it. Yeah. And so I'm becoming more comfortable, I would say, just with the liberation that happens when I experience the peace that I have, knowing that I'm sharing what I believe is true. And what I'm looking for is to have the people who I respect me. And so what happened was when we first got some feedback from people resisting it, you know, I had to go, well, wait a minute, like, the people who I respect want me to be speaking out, just like I want them to be speaking out. So it's one of the things I've learned about kind of finding my voice and stepping up to it has been to focus on who is it that I respect and how do I actually feel about myself. So the response has been great, and for the part of it that's, you know, hard when people misrepresent it or do what they do, it's all fine and worth it, and it's growing, and people are coming. We started this Solutions Hub just a few weeks ago, and it was more than like 20-something countries, and 100 groups had signed up in no time. So, yeah, I'm very, very grateful.
I see we've got a big gap in Africa that we need to fill there a little bit more, so we've got some work cut out for us.
Yeah. Yes, and so have you had any threats or problems with releasing this kind of information to the public and from people that you know?
Well, let's see. I think the biggest backlash we had, you know, there were some people in the movie who made an official dissociation from the movie. And so what we did was, you know, it was kind of a vague hit and run, honestly, like we want to be dissociated. And so what we invited them to do was to participate in a more meaningful conversation about what is it actually that they wanted to dissociate from. And let's get into a more meaningful conversation. So we created a forum at thrivemovement.com and invited them to express what it was that they felt uncomfortable about. And a few of them did, and then we had a chance to get into why we did what we did, and that felt really good. It gave a chance. You know, I love intelligent discussion. I'm not crazy about misrepresentation or vague assault. But whenever it's a chance to actually explore the issues more deeply or the motivation or the personal process, I love that. And to the extent that it facilitated that, I'm grateful. In terms of threats, there's some, you know, there's a wide range of people out there. And so there's sometimes there's some energy that's pretty uncomfortable, but we've also had, like, you know, Foster's had calls from both someone from the Rothschild family and someone from the Rockefellers, the younger generation, saying, you know, we don't dispute what you've said about us, and we want to break the legacy too. So, if our hope and intention would be that we could gather together and actually you know, televise a meeting and a conversation, and to make that available to watch this process. So, so I feel relatively safe, I would say, and for the most part, the response is great. And then there's always detractors who want to do what they do.
Yeah, always. We've got that obviously on our side too. It's taken us about 15 years to get over a certain, what I call canophobia.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one.
Really
yeah.
Fearing that plant and having to change a paradigm about, and it's only through education and through showing and telling, you know, like getting people to actually touch and feel, you know, like to say, look, this is hemp, it's not about that. And it's been a whole experience on that, and we pioneered our way, and now we're coming out of the trenches finally, and it's going to be beautiful to see the seeds go in the ground this year, and where we can actually get into the doing part, because the talking, we've all been talking a lot for the last quite a few years, and now to actually start proving that yes, we can provide jobs, we can build houses, we can help people, just create the enabling environment for us to do it. You know, we're not even really asking for the government to assist us, just give us the platform.
Yes, exactly. Well, I think that's what's true everywhere is people are ready for the solutions, and so to be kind of knocking against this, closed wall of a scarcity paradigm and being able to say, one of the things we ran into is some people felt that by naming the elite banking agenda and the individuals responsible for it, that we were sort of doing some kind of an us versus them mentality. And in fact, that's not at all the case. In our personal lives and in our cultures, there's just a notion of accountability that is related to justice. To say, you can't really be in the way and do harm to people without there needing to be a way that we can stop it and then to move forward. And so to me, it doesn't have to do with people being evil or us versus them or anything. It's a matter of accountability and responsibility and getting those people and policies out of the way in order to move forward with these solutions that people are just ready for. That's what's so exciting to me about the Solutions Hub. I'm hoping that what we're going to be putting out soon is this way to sort by issue, so that, industrial hemp can be there as an issue, and then people from all over the world can be sharing their experiences and best practices. And I think that helps to normalize it also, so that you don't have to be so radical to be even associated with an issue that actually, and that's what I thought your video did so well. So,
thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really important to just have it be, that people understand. I mean, the Constitution's written on it, for God's sake.
Well, we've seen that shift as well in the people that we're talking to. We've seen first of all, what I like to explain, that people are understanding that the rule book that got us into the situation is not going to get us out. So they're willing to hear of new alternatives. And a few years ago, alternative was almost seen as a negative, like, oh man, that's alternative, we're not going to look at that. And now people are going, we need alternatives, please. We can see where this path is leading, and if we stay on this, it's going to go one way and that's down. Can you show us the alternative? And they're willing to hear us and say, okay, it's a bit outside of my current paradigm, but let me listen and give you a chance. And that's very exciting to see that shift happening within the government, within business people. It's no business as usual is, it's people are understanding it's going to get us nowhere. So
I think that's right.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting, and we felt it for the first time this year, basically, in 15 years of doing this work, the shift that is happening, and it's obviously a very auspicious year, so hopefully it's going to continue as we build up towards the end, that more and more people will just be waking up and going, okay, let us look outside of what's been shoved down our throats since we were born and through our whole schooling and education, everything, and look and see, there is so much more to life, and there's so many other ways that we can live, and even if we don't know the way yet, we can help create it together if we cooperate and collaborate. So.
Absolutely. I actually think that, the folks behind, the efforts to keep these solutions at bay, I think they underestimate people, and that they push too hard, and that they're like here, the whole left-right political polarity has just lost its credibility. I mean, finally, people are realizing it is a sham and that they're being lied to. So, geez, if they've been lied to about that, what else have they been lied to about? And I think that's the kind of opening in the door of like, well, I hadn't thought about industrial hemp before, but, this pesticide thing's getting out of hand, and water's an issue for everybody. And so, anyway, I think the time is here. And, it's not easy, but it can happen.
Correct. And then one of the questions I wanted to ask is, obviously dealing with Africa, a majority of our population, we've got a couple of benefits that we're going to have going forward in the economic crisis, if it gets any worse, which we're all pretty sure that it is going to get worse, that we have the majority of the population who hasn't yet plugged into the system. So they know how to deal with scarcity already, which is, it's something that is, even though it's a negative, it can turn out to be a positive in the coming time. But with that, is how do we communicate these messages to people who've never heard of the Rothschilds or the Rockefellers, who their only problem with the system is that they're not in it. They haven't yet experienced that it's broken. They just think if I had a chance to get a job, if I had a chance to go work in a bank, then I will be okay. So
Right.
how do we communicate these messages in a way that's really accessible to someone who's coming from a very baseline, bottom of the pyramid way of life, and say, choose this instead of that. Don't aspire to what's coming out of the box in the corner of your lounge. It's telling you you want that way of life. We have a new way that you need to aspire to, and it's obviously the movie is great for communicating to people who have an understanding, a little bit of an understanding of the corruption of the system. But we've also got a challenge here outside of that.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. I think that probably one of the main issues is that it's set up where it's either poverty as an experience or, wealth and access to what you need. And that if the only viable source of enough is in that corrupt system, then you can't get at that intellectually because you're dealing with survival. And people will do whatever it takes to survive. So to me, this is where like the whole industrial hemp issue comes in and other solutions. If you can, or like community gardens or any of those things where people actually get a personal experience of enough. And even of abundance and, shared responsibility in community and watching things grow and come to life. If someone can have a direct experience of that in a way that doesn't include the corrupt system, then it would be a natural choice for them. It's only if it's, you have to either be in poverty. If you forego this corruptness, you're going to end up in poverty. Then it's natural to say, forget it. I can't keep on going without what's needed for my family to survive. So I think that's why I'm, personally quite oriented toward local movements, because I think it's actually through personal local experience that people understand, wow, this is a nice way to do it. These, where you go to the farmer's market and, you're sharing good food and you're feeling better as a result of it, and people are healing from illnesses and that they're not participating in these things. But I don't think it happens intellectually. I mean, I do think that understanding is very useful, and that's why we made a very dense, comprehensive, thoughtful movie. Because, and one thing is, people get it. I mean, it doesn't take being, educated at some high-level university or something to get Thrive. I think one of the things I'm so excited about it being so popular with millions of people all over the world is that it's true that people are really fundamentally bright and caring and thoughtful. And that when you talk about what's true, they get it. And so they can feel it, exactly. So I think it's on a feeling level that a lot of this happens, that I think that people understood that we were speaking to them respectfully and that we were telling them the truth. And that I think a lot of what the viable options are aligned with the natural life force. And in that regard, it's more natural to kind of align with it. But we have to provide those options there. For us, if you have a place to shop and get healthy food, it's more natural to make that choice than if you're told. I mean, we have the issue here, and I'm sure you do there, that, people would have to take what little money they have to take a bus out of their community to go even have access to decent food. And then bring it home again, because all they've got on the corners here are liquor stores and fast food markets. Yeah. And so our job to empower the local communities to make things available for people to make better choices, I'm guessing that's it there as well as anywhere, because people are people wherever you go.
Yeah. Well, we've got a problem here with the aspiration model, where people aspire to a certain way of life, and when they move from the rural areas into the townships, they stop growing their food, even though they grew up growing food, and now they just want to buy from the shop because we're city folk now, and that's what city folk do. Where maybe they grew up in a lifestyle where they lived in a mud brick house or a mud building, which is obviously better insulating, cooler, it works, much more healthy building. but they'll rather wait in the shack until they get the cement brick house, because that's what you live in the city. You've got to live in cement and brick. And it's trying to break that aspiration model and say, look, the natural way of life that the beauty here is that we're dealing with the majority of the population who's only 1 or 2 generations maximum away from the natural way of life. Where in the European, people from European background, we're probably 1,000 years, or at least 500 from where everyone lived according to nature. So we have an opportunity here as well, but it's just this move to urbanization, out of the rural economies, because there's no ways of them making money there. They come to the city and then they want these things. They want to shop in the malls. They want the brick and cement building. They want the bling, the American culture, and we've got to somehow break that. And so it's a challenge, but there are a lot of opportunities, as you said. So it's maybe as you say with the Solutions Hub, as important as the movie was, what is being created afterwards is now going to be more important for things like this.
I think so too. One of the things we want to create is some kind of a webinar or something where people can call in and actually share these next levels of conversations and explorations that get into this kind of thing, because, I'm kind of an invitation, or I'm oriented toward the invitation rather than the regulation. I believe that that people will make wise choices if they have the understanding about the implications and the opportunity to do it. And right now, those two things don't exist in most places. Even if you have the understanding, then what's the real alternative? And so, to me, we need to, that's why I'm looking for these efficiencies, so that we can build these things faster, because we need to create these alternatives faster than, we're in a pickle here.
We get it with the government here telling us that in the Karoo, which is our desert area, that Shell wants to come do fracking here.
Right.
That they've researched with the communities, and that the communities on the ground really want the fracking. But what they're not saying is that they don't necessarily want the fracking, they want investment and jobs. And if you say Shell is coming in to put X amount of $1 billion into the Karoo for fracking, and instead say someone else is coming in to put X amount of $1 million into a solar plant, which is going to be the same amount of jobs and the same amount of development, they'll be more than happy to go for that. But it's so skewed where they go and say, no, people want the fracking. And
that's it.
Want a way up. And if we can give them alternatives, then that's the solution. And then on that level, the free energy, how are things going there? The patents being suppressed, how close are we to seeing some things?
Yes, we want to know about that.
Yeah, well, I've actually had that's one of the things that's come. I'd say that the conversations that have been most prominent coming our way since putting Thrive Out have had to do with solutions. People really just wanting to know, okay, how do we get on with this now? And the other is free energy. The other is liberty. But with the free energy, what's happened is that I think we've received probably over 100, letters and requests to visit with different people with their technologies, either having to do with water purification, health devices, and or new energy technology. And so we also were hearing from people of wealth who wanted to do something more meaningful with their money, and were interested in investing in free energy. So Foster spent the months kind of vetting the technology. Excuse me. We also had some scientists. The thing about the technology, it has to be proven in conventional scientific terms, even though it's a new scientific paradigm. And so finding people, from MIT and Stanford and these places with the credentials that are needed and the basis in conventional science, but whose minds are still open to exploring a new paradigm. We gathered together some of those people with some of the people with the money, and then kind of the top 2 technologies that we identified out of the 100 that had come to us. And not from the normal field of kind of more public free energy inventors, because what I've found is that Thrive was kind of like an entrusted calling card. where people realize that if we make Thrive, we're trustworthy. And that they could tell from our understanding of the torus that we understood something about how it all works. And so we were contacted by people who are normally not out about what they're working on. And so we really got a chance to go to the whole next step of where this technology's at. And I can tell you it's really exciting. And so, there have been 5,000 patents confiscated when people go to apply to make new energy technology. And when I say new energy technology, we're talking about over unity, technology that produces more energy than it takes to start it. And, just for the sake of people listening, one of the things I hear a lot is, well, doesn't that defy the second law of thermodynamics? And it's important to understand that what we're really talking about is an infinite source of energy, not an infinite device. Any device wears out. That's just true of any physical thing. But the way it's done is it's kind of like a straw. And what happens is, that we're actually surrounded in this plenum of abundant energy. And people have found that if you can create a device that actually resonates with the field of this plenum of the universe, you kind of get into it almost like if you're tuning a guitar, it will naturally go in resonance with the other guitar once you hit the right note. So it's kind of like that. The universe is like this, note that a machine can tap into by creating a similar field, and through that pull in, like a straw, infinite amount of energy based on need. So there's no peak times, there's no storage, there's nothing like that. You put a hairdryer into it, more energy comes through, you unplug it, less comes through. And so where it's at is that it's highly risky, So at thrivemovement.com, in fact, we have a copy of the gag orders that one of the inventors we met with received, and which are typically given to somebody who makes the risk of applying for one. So it's really all about strategy. How do you take the device, get the money that's needed to actually manufacture the devices, and then get them out? And the main strategy, I can say, I have to be thoughtful about what I say, but the main strategy is to actually get the devices out not in America first, and then apply for a U.S. patent. So that by the time you apply, it's like, look, America, you're either in or you're not, but it's happening. And to also do things that get people, because when people understand that this is possible, and to me, this is probably the best answer to your question about how do you stop people from, wanting this false promise of a corrupt way. And I think when people have an experience of free energy technology, what happens is all of the time that's spent making the money to pay for the energy and enduring the consequences in the environment of all of these horrible energy technologies and the wars and all the rest that are associated with it, when you're liberated from that, what happens is people actually would have time to be spending in community and in creativity and in doing other things besides the amount of time that's now allotted to energy-related things. So, so that conversations at the table are how to manufacture and disseminate this in a way that's safe for the people before it's massively widespread. And it's a very serious conversation, and what I'm grateful for is to be at the table with people who are capable of doing what's needed. They've got the money, they've got the technology, they've got the international manufacturing capabilities to be able to do it. Now, what we're also looking into that's a little more complex is like, how do you do this? Some people say, why don't they just put out the design all over the internet and let everybody make it? And, it's a tricky one. That's one option. And I'm for all options. I like big, organic, try it all and see what works. Another option is that, it's taken a lot of risk and a lot of money and a lot of personal commitment for people and their companies to figure out these devices and bring them to fruition, and it will take a lot more to get them disseminated. And I think it's right that they should be paid for that work. What I'm not for are these mega corporations that, make the money at the expense of the people. So finally, we have a room of people who are equally committed to humanitarian and planetary values, and in a whole new paradigm of doing business. How do you do this and not let that happen? How do you meet the needs of the people at the same time that you're meeting the needs of the inventors and the producers? So it's a heartfelt, intelligent, challenging conversation to figure these things out, and I'm grateful to say that they are going on. These conversations are going on. Foster's estimate is that it will be within 5 years that people are actually experiencing these free energy devices in a way that it becomes a popular movement. I can say I think it will be sooner than that that we experience the water purification systems that are based on the same technology, because right now you have the, oh my God, the water stuff, it's incredible. And it is toroidally based, kind of an understanding, again, of working in harmony. But what you have is the ability to purify water without adding anything to it in a way that, I mean, you could clean up the Ganges River. You make in municipalities that have holding tanks, you can hold the water without any kind of chemical, and that the treatment of the water actually creates greater efficiency of absorption. So that in agriculture, for example, it looks like the evidence is that you need 40% less water to achieve the same amount of irrigation. So I am, in fact, it's funny, I'm about to have my 60th birthday, so I'm making a little thing for my grandkids to hear what are my predictions at age 60, or what I think will be true in their lives. And so, of course, a lot of it has to do with all of this new paradigm technology, and not just in their lives, in our lives too, but it's going to take a while to, it will be reflected in the stock market instantly as soon as it's out, which is one of the reasons I think it's so suppressed. And I think it is, we're working with early adopters at this stage. For some people this is just too far out and they can't quite imagine a paradigm of abundance, but they will. That's the way movements happen. And it is true that more and more people, one of the things we really work on when we talk with people is having a vision of what's possible. Because we notice is that for many people, when we first started doing some interviews when we were just beginning with Thrive in the early days, we interviewed like 20 young environmental studies students. And one of the things we asked, committed, bright young folks, and asked them, what's your vision of a thriving environment and a thriving planet? And 2 of them could articulate a vision of a thriving planet. It was like heartbreaking to see that actually a vision of what's possible had been so burned out of them with the despair and kind of fear and hopelessness that we thought, a lot of what we want to do here is to help people access that vision. And see, the whole free energy technology is not the paradigm of visioning abundance, because in fact that's what's true. And I think that's actually one of the reasons it's been so suppressed, is that a paradigm of abundance changes everything. It changes class relations everywhere. It changes because suddenly, instead of, well, if you have it, I don't, and if I have it, I have to protect it from you getting it, it's like there's actually enough for everybody, and we can do it cleanly and harmoniously, and everything else shifts from that. And so that's the good of it, and that's the challenge of it. So it's more complicated. The technology it's simple, but it's not easy. Like a lot of things, when you finally get it, you realize, oh, it's quite simple, but it wasn't easy to get there. And the whole manufacturing distribution and the funding and and a lot of times it's kind of mad scientist types who can actually develop this stuff. So you got all the personalities that you deal with along with it, and
the best at communicating it.
Yeah, no, that's right. And sometimes think, well, you should just believe it because I say I have it. It's like, no, actually, we need to vet this in a very responsible way. And I think that's one of the things that Foster and I have been valuable in our presence is, just kind of coming from the background and being our age and all this kind of stuff, to just say, look, we need to do this in a way that is very responsible and that takes, instead of getting $20 million put into it. Let's put $5 million that somebody has here, work incrementally. When that comes through, this next part happens, and do it in a way that's responsible. Yeah, and so it's happening, and I am hopeful, and I think he's right. I think 5 years is probably accurate. I think there's going to be so many changes in the next 5 years that. So my hope is that there would be these little pilot projects of this technology in a way that soon the people in the villages that you're talking about would be able to see abundance from a different mode than the one, and then it would be natural for them to choose that. When they see that compared to fracking, people know. I mean, you can hear the earth when there's something. It's horrific.
And that ties into my next question, was with the way that you said where your value has come and your ability to communicate some of these ideas, do you think in future you may be producing more videos that simplify? Is there a bit of background noise on your side too? Can you hear that?
I hear it on your end. I don't know what it's from, but anyway.
Okay. I was just going to say, your ability to communicate these ideas, do you have plans to produce more short videos that are really educational just on the solutions that are coming forward?
Yeah, I think the solutions is where we're at. Asking about making another big movie would be like asking someone who just had like quadruplets if they want to have another baby or something. It's like, this is a lot. But in terms of making short videos, I think that's the way to communicate. In fact, and the solutions is what we're interested in. So I think we'll be doing probably, like I said, we want to set up some kind of a webinar. And also, create. I like to highlight what people are doing and what's working, and to share these best practices. So whatever we can get into with that. And I have a son who does something called Surfing for Change. In fact, he did a piece, you can see it at surfingforchange.com, on the nuclear power plant being proposed for J-Bay in South Africa.
Okay. Is he a surfer?
Yeah, he's a pro surfer, and he uses his notoriety as a surfer to help gain exposure for different environmental issues that are going on. And he uses like surf spots around the world to highlight it. But it's been fabulous. It gets all kinds of surfers and surf industry involved because, they naturally are relating to the environment, but aren't naturally engaged as activists. So it's just kind of a bridge between those worlds. Anyway.
I'm a surfer too, and I feel exactly what you're saying. We're out there all the time enjoying the nature, but all our equipment is completely toxic to the ocean. And I was telling him I've just made a hemp surfboard where I replaced all the fiberglass with hemp fabric. So,
fabulous. And there's somebody here doing something too that I think you can link to through Surfing for Change. I'll send you a link and encourage others to see it too. But anyway, I can't remember what I was. So I think he'll be chronicling also some of the development of these different technologies and putting them in. He does only like 4-minute or less little YouTube videos to just kind of get out and go viral. Foster and I have never found a way to say anything in 4 minutes, but we're working on it.
Okay. Because we're about to spend another 3 billion rand or something here on nuclear. It's just being pushed through very quietly. And
it's horrible.
It's not in the public knowledge yet that that's the way that we are going to go. So
and they do it by looking for jobs. I know that's what's true in J-Bay. They say you'll have employment through this. Not to mention the level of toxicity and all the other possibilities for jobs that exist, and that's our job, I guess, is to present the alternative.
Exactly, and that area in J-Bay is very close to the Eastern Cape where we plan to grow the most hemp. And it's the province in South Africa that is the most impoverished. It was traditionally a rural homeland during apartheid, so it was kept tribal, and all the skills were taken away. All the men left to go work on the mines, so it was the women who were left behind to try and continue farming, but a lot of the farming knowledge left with the men, so bad farming practices, and that's now, because it's such an impoverished province, everyone leaves there to come to the cities. So we have this flow of people who are uneducated, unskilled, coming to look for work in the cities and they've got nothing to offer. So it's really, that whole area is very crucial to our country, and we're very happy that it's one of the prime, we know already for one of the prime cannabis growing areas. It's got summer rainfall, and the cousin grows very well there without any pesticides, fertilizers, any irrigation. So now it's bringing them across to the other side and growing for food, for housing, and for job creation rather than the illicit use. Yeah.
Well, it'd be really good for you to connect then. I'll connect you with Surfing for Change, because he rides for Patagonia. Okay. And so you can get, you know, some attention there on this alternative, because then you can have people employed growing hemp and processing that instead, which is fabulous, because if that's what they're looking for is jobs, and it's hideous to watch the lies that they're told.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to ask about the cancer, the suppressed cancer cures.
Well, let's see, the suppression of cancer cures. You know, it's interesting. There's so much information available on the web, and I know it's sort of like, well, why aren't people just able to access that with all this information that's out there? And I think, you know, the thing that I understood in doing the research that I did is that it's really about funding and about patents. And when somebody has the vested interest in making money, like, you know, so the FDA and the AMA and all of these organizations that are all, it's all part of the same system. So the research is controlled by the same funding, and it's about patents, as I mentioned in Thrive, that if a company can make money from a product, then, and that's their goal, you know, it's just, what's your goal? Is it to make money, or is it to have people heal? Because if it's to have people heal, there's a huge amount, you know, that people have available to themselves to heal from the natural environment and from our understanding of working in harmony with it. And so if your object is to create money independence, then it's about creating cures for illnesses, supposed cures for illnesses, that you're then dependent upon again and again. And one of the primary ways that this is kept going is through the marginalization of so-called alternatives. Because even to look into them, you know, when I started doing the research, it's like, you know, they just get written off. These new technologies or remedies, it looks like quackery, and it's, you know, it's disputed here, and the AMA's against it, and the FDA's against it, and all these other regulatory bodies that, I mean, when I go to a doctor and they say, well, the AMA's approved this, I'm like, am I supposed to be impressed with that? You know, like, that doesn't do anything for me, but only because I've had a chance to follow the money and really understand how corrupt this whole system is. So it's, you know, I mean, it's heartbreaking to see that there definitely are viable alternatives for healing. And the way that we're kept from having access to those or from taking them seriously is a crime. And, you know, you can't get insurance when you go that route, and there are just all kinds of obstacles for keeping it at bay. I do think that, I think that's going to change, because, again, more and more people, you know, when you realize that you've been lied to in one arena, I think you do start questioning more and more. And I just don't know anybody that I've spoken to anywhere who feels good about the kind of healthcare system or opportunities that they're having, even if they're from a country where you can get access to a doctor. What are you being prescribed by that doctor? You know, and that's where I think our empowerment is kind of the key in all of this, whether it's our economic system, our agriculture system, our education system, our health system. It's all about, are we empowered to make the decisions that are right for us? And, you know, I think that everybody's system, personal body system, is a little different, and that we resonate with different kinds of cures for different kinds of ailments, and that there isn't one thing to do. And I'm quite confident that beating down the system and filling it with the toxins in order to have this ongoing dependence on the pharmaceutical company is definitely a very limited option, and it's one that when you understand and watch the funding and how it works behind the scenes, it's enough to make anybody suspicious. So I know, you know, to me it's probably been one of the saddest things. It actually was instrumental for me in taking the next step of my inquiry into the agenda, what I think of as a global domination agenda for controlling people, because I thought, wow, if they would actually, you know, prevent people from having the information and the access to these alternative cures, that's not very different than killing them.
Exactly.
Because the fact is they're dying as a result of that. And so if that's true, then the notion that there is deliberate depopulation going on is actually a logical step. You know, it's like, well, so if you're depriving someone of something, how different is that from an overt murder, really? And so that's how I sort of graduated in my own personal process to being able to take the next steps. And, you know, I think that in our movie Thrive and at the website thrivemovement.com, probably one of the primary values of what we offer is that we really went through this as a journey ourselves. We did not start out our inquiry with our conclusions. You know, we were both just kind of good, caring liberals, and it was like kind of pulling on this string and, well, wait a minute, what happened to that, and what are the implications of this if this is true, and kind of taking time to really unpack it. That I think that's what's made it accessible to people, because it wasn't just kind of, well, we knew this and now we're here to prove it. We didn't know it, we discovered it, and that's what motivated us to do what was necessary to help share it.
I think you touched on something there about the medicines, people having specific systems and getting to understand their bodies and then take responsibility for their own health and healing. And that's a big problem that we have with the whole system being designed to give your power away to someone else. You don't take responsibility for your own body and for your healing, and how to bring that back in where people go, hold on, I do have an impact, I am a powerful being, I can make a difference, starting with me. And just, I don't know if it's any different in America, but here in South Africa, I think in 7 years of learning to be a doctor, they do less than a week of nutrition.
Yeah.
So,
it's hideous. I just watched a movie the other day called Forks Over Knives. Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah, it was good. It was all about the relationship between meat and cancer, actually. I thought it was pretty interesting. Yeah, I agree. Whether it's our spirituality, our education, our health, all of the ways that we are sort of trained to give up. You know, one of the things I noticed, though, as we've been on tour, is that when you think about the systems that, you know, really we've all been raised in, whatever country we're in, to do this separation from ourselves and that relationship to who am I, what's my purpose, and what do I know about myself to be true, and how do I live in alignment with that? You know, I mean, instead of that being what we're focusing on, it's all this other distraction. And even so, like, there are so many awake people who have gotten access to themselves, who are committed. You know, it's like, wow, think of what's going to happen when these obstacles are removed, which they will be. I think we will have a whole new paradigm of living, because I don't think it's an option anymore to tweak these systems and get by. You know, there's too much gone wrong, and the stakes are too high with nuclear and things like that. That's just not going to happen. So I think it's going to be a radical transformation, and I think that there are just so many more people than you would know who are ready for it. And I'll tell you, you can't tell by looking at them or any of that. Like races and classes and kinds of people. It's just a complete, varied mix of folks who kind of knew all along and didn't really buy this into it. And, you know, that's one of the things about the number of kind of disenfranchised people that you have in your country, is that as much as they have this desire for something that's corrupt, they still haven't had access to the complete training all the time. That, you know, I see it like when, just in closed-mindedness. it's like, wow, you know, sometimes the more education and training you get, the more closed-minded you end up. And so when I see...
Programming you've had.
Pardon?
Programming.
Yeah, exactly. It's the programming. So, you know, in this country, I think less than half of the people who are eligible to vote. And to me, I think that's all right, because I think that it's a sign that they know that the whole voting thing is a sham. And that if you gave them something meaningful to participate in, where they really felt that their vote would count and that the change would matter, you could do anything just by engaging the people who don't already vote. You wouldn't even have to change the minds of the folks who already do. So I feel like those folks who aren't engaging, who haven't engaged so far, there are a lot of those and a lot of people who are in the system but just haven't been satisfied with it, who are ready, a lot more ready than we'd be led to believe. And that was another part of our intention at ThriveMovement.com with the Solutions Hub, is to help be a mirror back for people to see how many of us there are who are really actively engaged in taking on solutions and getting on with it.
Beautiful. Do you think, I was going to ask about the top 10 actions, but I think we'll do it for the top 3 that you think for the everyday person, just to start to implement some of these ideas or ways of being.
For me, I actually think understanding our own purpose. And I know that can sound kind of scary or, you know, heavy if you haven't thought in those terms, but you know, the way we describe it in the movie is speak up, get informed, and connect with others as step 1. And to me, that what I found in the speaking up is that it actually takes a relationship with myself in order to know what is it that I have to speak up about and why am I doing that? Well, you know, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to be in a room where you're going to be the one to name the thing that isn't what's commonly believed or, you know, propagated. And so the speaking up and the getting informed, to me, they're going to be something that touches each one of us, that motivates us. And to find out what that is for yourself, and then get yourself informed and do connect with others to have these conversations about what's going on. Because we need each other, we need the support of each other, we need the critical thinking of each other. And so to me, really, you know, we created ThriveMovement.com in a way you can actually get credit, college credit, through a universal global university where you can get credit in any country for studying on Thrive. And that includes just really, you know, trip around on the website and find out what resonates with you and what's the part that you have to play, because that's what's most important, is finding out what's your role, because we don't all have the same role, but there is a role for each of us. So I would say that's number 1. And I think number 2 has to do with you know, if you have the money to keep in a bank, then any amount of money is multiplied times 10. So if you have $100 in the bank, you've given the bank $1,000 worth of lending power. And so to understand that where you keep your money and how the banks use it, you know, it's the same way if you know, everybody knows the difference between like a good idea and a good project. It's money. And how do you get the funding? And how do these nuclear corporations get the funding to build these horrific nuclear power plants? They get loans from the bank, and the bank uses our deposits to make those loans. So you actually have a huge amount more power than you think by choosing where you keep your money. And in every country, there's a centralized banking system, and in every country, these centralized banks are the ones that are making the loans. So being responsible about your money and where you keep it and where you spend it. And I know that this is class-based, because some people don't have any money to keep in the bank, and some people don't have choices about where to shop, and I certainly understand that. And many people, most people have, who have access to this internet to be watching this, have, you know, $10 and $100 that they're spending or putting somewhere. And to recognize that that money is actually a vote, that it gives a message. It says, I want to support you. So that's kind of number 2 for me. And then, let's see, of all of the ones, number 3, I think I'll skip right on through supporting organic, GMO-free food and all of those kinds of things to this notion of truly inquiring into absolutely whole new energy technologies and not being, and have access to independent media like your show, where people are discussing real information about real options, whether it's the industrial hemp or alternative currencies or what else is really going on. I think it goes along with getting informed, but it takes the step further, which is how do we engage in these solutions. And so one of them has to do with really knowing that you know, nuclear and coal and fracking and these oil-based energy technologies are absolutely not necessary, and that there will be new technologies coming along with the ones that are there, and that we need to join together to support the people who will be taking the risk to get those things out. And the first thing we can do is be open-minded to the possibility and allow ourselves to have a vision of a thriving world. So I'd say those 3 things.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I would like to say thank you very much, and we hope to see you here in Africa one day as part of your solutions.
I would love to come to Africa, and I would love to have the movie translated into the different languages that could make that possible there. We have if any of your listeners are in a position that they can do that, we have a script available to do the translations and create subtitles and get the movie out. I know it requires access to the internet, but they're in every community, you know, it's possible to hold these screenings and stuff. So I wish you the best. I appreciate your good work. Anything that we can do to help promote your show and also this important work you're doing with industrial hemp, we're on the same team. So thank you, and